Hello, this is Michael Whitaker. This is photo post number 14 of the 21 photo posts I'm doing on LinkedIn and sharing on Facebook. The topic of this post is using photo composition to make statements. The photo for this post is José Martí and Emilio Vizcaino Ávila. It's from my documentary project, Faces of the 2016 Cruzada Teatro Guantanamo Baracoa. A little background for this photo starts with the reality that during both of my careers, I have focused on the complexities of individualities. I'm not sure why, but I have an ability to visually represent concepts. Over the years, through interacting around issues related to individuality, I created a schematic model of how I view individuality. A colleague of mine suggested that it's time that I introduce this model to the people who are viewing these videos. So I'm going to do a very brief presentation. Actually, I'm just going to let you look at the model to make the point that when I talk about individuality, I'm not talking about some abstract concept or issues related to individuality. I actually have a visual representation of individuality. It was essential for me to create that during my first career when I worked with different populations, including violent juvenile offenders. And for my photography, it helps orient me regarding upon what I want to focus when I'm photographing. So here is just a brief look at my model. I'm not going through it. It's simply entitled Complexities of Individuality. The blue area here is the world. The yellow area is the individual. I conceptualize this as a spaceship in space with docking ports for other spaceships to connect to other spaceships. Friends of mine have a habit of referring to this as my yellow submarine, which is fine with me. It's sort of the same perspective. But very quickly you can see there's issues about the self, there are issues about ways we connect to the world, and there are issues in these white boxes about knowledge and skills that help us interact with the world. For this particular photo, I'm focusing on Emilio, who is a very talented artist, a very talented performer, and he also just happens to be the director of the Cruzada Teatro Guantanamo Baracoa, which is a 6-week journey, a 6 weeks crusade into the mountains of Guantanamo province. It includes actors from all over Cuba. It also includes actors from South America and even Europe. Emilio performs almost on a daily basis with the Cruzada, and on every single day he manages the troupe and all of the key individuals in the towns and villages in which the troupe performs. So just a quick example to look at Emilio. From this model, I first of all looked at Emilio and his values and ethics down here in the self column. Also, Emilio is amazingly creative. So there's issues up here, and his interactions with other people are just literally, again, I'll use the word amazing. So when I met Emilio and got to know him, and all of this is in my mind, I don't carry this around with me, I thought of Emilio in these three distinct areas. So that affected my way of viewing Emilio and the way that I photographed him and the way that I viewed his various roles in the Cruzada. So back to this image. The other background piece of information on this image is José Martí. In this photo here in the back, there is a statue of José Martí. He was a poet and an essayist who played a very significant role in Cuba's efforts to be independent from Spain. In fact, José Martí is a key figure in the liberation of Cuba from Spain in 1898. He is a hero to Cubans. During my first Cuban project, which was entitled Faces of Cuba, I traveled to every single province in Cuba. I stayed with families, I met people, hundreds of people, and a commonality that they all shared was a deep love and devotion to José Martí. So I have a pretty good background and a lot of experiences dealing with issues related to José Martí. He is an important character. He is an important part of this particular photo. Another important part of this photo is the concept of photo composition. Photo composition is really nothing more than the arrangements of the visual elements in a photograph. So for this post, I'm focusing on the visual arrangements of the elements in this photo. Of course, the third factor of this photograph is Emilio, who I've already briefly described. This photo is of the last event of the 2016 Cruzada Teatro Guantanamo Baracoa. I was with the Cruzada for the entire 6 weeks. I traveled with the troupe. As a member of the troupe, I was introduced at every evening performance, as an American photographer. So throughout the Cruzada, some actors are there for the entire 6 weeks. Some are there for the first 3 weeks, excuse me, and some are there for the last 3 weeks. Emilio is there for all 6 weeks. So for this photo, everyone is gathered in José Martí Park in the city of Guantanamo. The Cruzada takes place throughout the entire province of Guantanamo, but the starting place is the city of Guantanamo. Every year on January 28th, the birth date of José Martí, and it always ends in Guantanamo City, right here in José Martí Park. So we're all gathered here for the final ceremony of the 2016 Cruzada. Emilio is speaking to this very large audience group of people about the experiences of the Cruzada, what the Cruzada means, his relationship to the Cruzada, the relationship to José Martí, and so on. I don't speak Spanish, and there was no one at the time to interpret what Emilio was saying. But I could look around the audience and see people with watery eyes and tears actually streaming down their face. So I knew Emilio was emotionally moving these people. José Martí is known for his love of the Cuban people. Based on my understanding of Martí, I believe Emilio embodies José Martí's love for the Cuban people, and specifically his love for the people of Guantanamo province. And at that moment, it hit me. I need to capture this image of Emilio with José Martí's statue in the background. If you look at the image at the time that this thought occurred to me, I was out to the right side of the image. I was over to Emilio's left. So I had to reposition myself, which I did very carefully, so that I put Emilio in my camera, through my camera, in front of the statue of José Martí. I didn't align it perfectly, but my effort was to align Emilio with the statue of Martí to create sort of a fanciful impression that José Martí was gazing down upon Emilio. I wanted to make a statement. I understood the importance of José Martí and his love for the Cuban people. I know Emilio, and I understand his love for the people of Cuba, and particularly the people of Guantanamo province. So I wanted to create this fanciful impression that José Martí was actually staring down and gazing upon Emilio. There's not perfect alignment, but it's situated in a way that I think creates a fanciful impression that Jose is listening to what Emilio is saying. And if you, depending on what you believe about the afterlife, I like to think Emilio is much known, and that José Martí is aware of what Emilio is doing. I composed this photograph to express my respect and admiration for Emilio. It's that simple. I did it by changing the elements in the photograph. Before, I was looking across over to Emilio, and the street was in the background. I moved around to put José Martí behind Emilio to make a statement regarding my respect and admiration of Emilio. It's really that simple. Now, in the post, I make the point that I do not consider myself an artist or a photojournalist. Different teachers and mentors I've had for photography argue that perhaps I am an artist. I just don't see it. I don't consider myself an artist, and I'm definitely not a photojournalist. Very simply, I am a storyteller, and I prefer to tell stories about the wonderment, what I call the wonderment of individualities. So for my sphere, the type of storytelling that I do, it's acceptable to me to use composition to make statements about the person on whom I'm focused for any particular interest, for any particular image. I'm not always successful, but I was very pleased with the effect I created in this photograph by placing José Martí and Emilio in the same frame. So it's just that simple. I use photo composition as a tool in the process of telling my stories. A photojournalist might disagree that you shouldn't make statements like that, and they're probably right in the context of photojournalism. But I'm not a photojournalist. So when I want to call someone's attention to the wonderment of individuality, I use whatever tools I can to help them recognize and appreciate the wonderment of the individuality of the person that I'm photographing. That's all it is. I have my way of viewing the world, and photo composition is one of the tools that I view. That's all I have to say about this photograph. Photo post number 15 is next. I am presenting a project that I completed, a formal project I completed, that from which I have not shared images so far in this series. So next time I will show an image from the Neshoba County Fair project that I did. And the image will be about discovering something new and how you handle something you never knew existed, and now you're right there photographing. So that will be photo post number 15 about the Neshoba County Fair. Neshoba County is in Mississippi. As always, I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your interest and knowing what's going on in my head when I'm capturing specific images. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.